Let me send out some tweets. Let me fix my hair a little bit. Holy cow. That was unexpected, wasn't it? I'm just putting out some stuff, let people come in and let my kitty cat jump up on my table. What in the... Let some people pile in here. Because my first thought after that game, we had some stuff. You're listening to Missouri Postgame at the Voice of College Football. That was let's get into it. Missouri 30, Oklahoma 23. They did it. When it was fully announced Brady Cook wasn't going to play, I did not think Mizzou was going to win that game. Throughout the game, I didn't think Mizzou was going to win that game. But Drew Pine throws for 3 touchdowns, and the Tigers pull it out. They get a play that was some of the craziest endings, one of the craziest endings I've ever seen in a football game. And I'm excited to talk about it. We're here with you guys this Saturday night. Mizzou, look, they're the 2014 Missouri Tigers, guys. Like, it's just not pretty, but they're 7-2. And, I don't think I know Eli said after the game the playoff hopes are dead, but no, they're not dead. They're still alive. I think they're dead because sorry, I'm trying to send out more. Welcome, everybody, the Voice of College Football. This is Missouri Live, Missouri Postgame. Mizzou wins. Thank you all for coming in. We're letting some more people join. Thank you all for being here. We're getting some comments in. What in the world was this game? Dude, I don't know. That was crazy. I was despondent. After that fumble, I wasn't despondent, obviously. I didn't think Mizzou was going to win, but I was just like, oh, my God, they're going to do that again. They're going to do it again. They're going to collapse, and they're going to lose to OU. And I'm like, if you can't beat OU with a +3 turnover margin, you're never going to beat OU. And they go to Norman next year. But they win. Drew Pine did it. MVP of the game, Drew Pine. He didn't turn the ball over. He threw for 3 touchdowns. He ran for some big first downs when the offense finally started to get it going. That was just some great football from him tonight. He earned his stripes, man. The quarterbacks that have beaten OU the last 30 years at Mizzou are Blaine Gabbert and Drew Pine. I mean, they scored 30 against Power 5 competition. That's the most amount of points they've scored in regulation all year. All year. They didn't score that many points against Vandy. I mean, they did, but it took to overtime. What? Man, Drew Pine earned his dang stripes tonight. Let's talk about it. My mood changed because honestly, coming into this, I was thinking, this is the headline. After the fumble, Mizzou goes up. Pine has a really nice drive to put them up 7, 16-9. Really nice pass to Norfleet in the corner. And then Mizzou gets the ball, gives up a touchdown and a throwback to Jackson Arnold, which is a really nice play design. OU's offense, they're not going to bring back Joe John Finley, but man, that O-line's a problem. And we'll talk about that as we kind of go more in post-game in depth. But Mizzou fumbles it. Jamal Roberts, who I thought had a really nice game. I thought Jamal Roberts was the best running back on the team tonight. Marcus Carroll had some nice runs. And obviously OU's got an awesome defense. But Jamal Roberts was 13 for 54. But he fumbled. Billy Bowman runs it back for his 15th touchdown of the year, it feels like, or of his career at OU, because he's a really good player, man. And all of a sudden, it's oh, God, 2 minutes. Drew Pine. Keep that banner up. So Drew Pine comes in. It's 3rd and 16. There was a hold on OU, so that let him convert. And then Pine just chucked it up, and LB3 makes a freaking play. That's what he's here for, to make plays like that. And then Pine to the corner of the end zone. Touch, like Theo Weiss all year. A lot of the offense, you looked at Bama, the game plan against Bama, it was a lot of 50-50 balls. And none of them seemed to go Theo Weiss's way. Now, with some of that, he wasn't getting single coverage and whatever. Yeah, of course. But you throw up a 50-50 ball to Theo Weiss, and he goes up and gets it. And he gets the toe in. And Mizzou scores. And it's a tie game. OU gets the ball back with 1:03 left. And Tristan Newsome, who's kind of been invisible this year, makes the play. Makes a play. Strips Zion Young, who got hurt earlier in the game. And I see you guys all coming in. Appreciate it. Zion Young runs it into the end zone. 30-23. OU gets the ball back. I think that was targeting on Deion Burks, and I hope he's okay. He's an awesome receiver. Came over from Purdue, probably one of the favorites to lead the SEC in receiving this year, and just hasn't been able to stay healthy. And it walked off the field with he was having trouble walking off the field. And so thoughts are with him, and I hope he can play. I think they play Bama in 2 weeks. Yeah, they got a bye. And then they play Bama, and then they got LSU, which the road from hell for Bama for Oklahoma continues. Their first year in the SEC, and then Jackson Arnold takes off for a good game. And you know what? Actually, when he started to run, I got a little nervous because he very easily could have slid down at the 45 with a second or two left, call timeout. That's Hail Mary range, and it's in that end zone, that south end zone that Mizzou always seems to have fun things happening. So, but he just kind of runs out the clock, and then he realizes it, and they start throwing the ball back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And man, my thoughts are so scattered right now. I was not expecting to do this kind of post game. And Mizzou wins 30-23. Thank God they did not rush the field. I was super nervous about that. I was like, please don't rush the field. Like, I know beating OU, it doesn't matter how good OU is, how good Mizzou is, or how much better or worse, whatever. Beating OU is a good win. It's a very good win. Because OU's talented, OU has guys, and that defense is awesome. And for a program like Missouri, who is trying to elevate into that next tier into the SEC, where they're going from like a mid-bottom tier, like they're in a tier with like South Carolina, and they have another chance to keep moving up. I mean, they've owned South Carolina in recent years, but that's a really good team. They've been in a tier with like Kentucky and some of these Auburn, and some of these also rans now in the SEC. And last year was a step up to elevate. And they need to continue doing that, and a win like tonight does that. But yeah, no, they win the game, and yeah, I mean, Mizzou desperately needed a win tonight. You're at home. You were at the end. You were +4 in turnover margin. You cannot lose that game, and you didn't. It's been a big game all offseason. A lot of trash talk. The Caden Green recruitment, the Williams Nwaneri recruitment, just with everything. It was a huge game. Now, obviously, it didn't have the playoff implications like I think a lot of people hoped it might have at the beginning of the year. But it's still a big game. It is a rivalry. We talked about this Monday. It is still a rivalry. And Mizzou came out on top. Thank you all for coming in. The Voice of College Football. This is Missouri Postgame here at the Voice of College Football Network. Guys, Voice of College Football is only growing. We have our Missouri channel. We have a bunch of new channels coming up. Like and subscribe. Please share the show on social media. I go with gray tonight. I was kind of tired of looking at black. Hit that like button. Please subscribe. I mean, subscribe to all our channels. Keep track. There's a lot of intelligent people here on this channel that love talking about college football with you. So please, I insist. The big story tonight is the former OU guys. So you had four big ones for or three big ones for the four big ones for the Tigers. And now Williams did not play. I didn't see him at all. And sometimes like maybe he was like a far side D end, but he didn't hit the stat sheet at all. He's always been kind of more of a project than a go-to guy, so it's not that surprising. But then you had Caden Green, who I thought was okay tonight. He got hurt and was replaced by Mitch Walters, but I think he was okay. He's really been up and down this year. I think next year he'll improve. I think the Mizzou O-line, if Membu comes back and Tollison comes back and you have Green, Mitch Walters proves to be anything, I think Mizzou offensive line next year could be pretty good and experienced, which is going to be important when you're going to be losing everything you're going to be losing this year. But then you had the big one, Theo Weiss, who came back for this game. I fully believe that. He could have gone to the NFL, been like a day 3 pick, probably a day 3 pick, like a high-end day 3 pick, because he was the best 50-50 ball guy in college football last year, and they used him as such. He was invisible for most of the game. He had the touchdown on the screen, which was a really nice play designed by Kirby Moore. And I talked a lot of crap about Kirby Moore on Twitter. I'm probably going to walk it back a little bit because I have no oomph to me. But on the drive to tie the game at 23, he goes for 28 yards on the first play of the game, play of the series, puts his foot in the ground, hits the slant, beats the safety. gets upfield, and then just the unbelievable catch in the corner, which was, you know what, too, and we'll keep talking about him. Really good ball by Drew Pine. He put it in a place that only Theo Weiss could have gotten at. And I hate fade balls, but, when you got a receiver like that, fade ball, probably not the end of the world. No, Theo Weiss was unbelievable tonight. He's the kind of guy that Mizzou fans, I don't think, have appreciated enough. And this year it's been hard. I understand that. He hasn't put up the numbers this year. He had the huge game against Buffalo that's kind of elevating everything higher than where it probably should be. But man, he's just so consistent. He's so good. And Mizzou's really going to miss him next year. He seems like a great guy on the field. His dad's hilarious on Twitter. He's a guy Mizzou's really, really going to miss. And he showed out tonight, man. Now, there's still 3 games left. And you know what? You won this one. South Carolina on the road is going to be a tough challenge. That's a really good football team. They just went on the road and steamrolled Vandy. But you can win that game. You beat them in 22 with a worse Mizzou team and I think a better South Carolina team. I'm not entirely confident in that, but it's possible. They'll beat Mississippi State. I'm pretty confident in that. And then a home game against Arkansas. 9-10 wins is still on the table for this team, which in the 2 big games you got blown out and just destroyed. So there's no coming back from that. But 9-10 wins is still a good season for the University of Missouri football as it stands. And that opportunity is still on the table for these guys. And a lot of it is due to tonight's heroics from Theo Weiss. He was awesome. I mean, there's no other way to put it. So we've talked about the offense. Now let's talk about the side of the ball that is the story for most of this game. They gave up 16 points, and I think 3 of it was more on the special teams than them. We'll talk about special teams here in a second because we'll talk about it with the defense. I have some issues. The defense was awesome. Now, part of that is the OU offensive line is just overmatched. There's no other real way to put it. I mean, Missouri has not had an explosive year, but Tristan Newsome looked like his old self. He had 2.5 tackles for a loss. Christian Williams half a tackle for a loss. Johnny Walker lived in that backfield. He was creating havoc all night for Jackson Arnold. Only finished with half a sack, but it felt like he was in on everything. Chuck Hicks had a big sack. Zion Young had half a sack. Zion Young had a really nice game from a pressure standpoint. Again, it's hard to contextualize everything because the OU offense is so just not good. But you did hold a Division I quarterback to 74 yards on 24 throws. You'll take that. You'll take that every time. It doesn't matter who. You'll take it. 74 yards on 24 throws. That's 3.1 yards per attempt. Now, they didn't force any interceptions. So when you go back and kind of look at the stats of this game, fumbles are the big story. Like Mizzou outgained them 278 to 257. Nothing crazy in the stats department. I mean, Mizzou did when you recover 4 fumbles, that is kind of luck. But I thought all night Mizzou was the better team. I guess you were +3 in turnovers because you did give up 1. I thought Mizzou was a better football team. I think with Brady Cook, Mizzou wins this game by 2 scores. I think the offense keeps the ball for a little bit longer. I don't know if they put up 30 just because they hadn't done that all year, but I think you're more seeing like a 27-13, a 27-10 kind of game because the defense was awesome tonight. Now they gave up the field goal before half. That's on special teams. Or a hold for giving up the 15-yarders. The special teams are awful tonight. Kicked the kick out of bounds, and I don't think Eli was very good tonight. Kicked the kick out of bounds, missed an extra point. Chance early in the game to pin him, and Bauer kicks it into the end, like 10 yards deep into the end zone. Misses a field goal, and then OU goes down and gets a field goal. Not impressed with special teams tonight, but the defense was flying. I thought Toriano Pride had a great night. That PI, notwithstanding, because he did have one where he was just draped all over. I think it was Burks. I thought Norwood was great tonight. I thought the defense played really, really well. The touchdown they gave up was a kind of a goofy play, and credit to OU for drawing something like that up when they needed to do. Special teams were not special tonight. No, they were not. And to be honest, I'm shocked it didn't cost them, because in a game like this where points were going to be limited except for defensive touchdowns, which you had 2. And Mizzou got the ball on a short field a couple of times because of turnovers. Like, your special teams have to make plays, and they just didn't. No, they missed extra point. I'm sorry for yawning. It is 10:45 here. And I did have to work this morning, so I've been up since like 6:30. But I thought special teams was going to make a big difference, and it's Luke Bauer pinning somebody. They also hit a returner. Like, special teams at Mizzou, outside of the thicker kicker, has just been not good for a long time. My hair stinks right now. I say that every show. It just stinks. It was just awful tonight, and there's nothing really to glean from it. Like, Craig made his one field goal, which is cool, I guess. He missed the extra point when they should have gone for 2. Honestly, like, you go for 2, you don't get it. It's 16-9, which ended up being anyway, and it's a touchdown game. You get it. It's 18-9, and more than likely at that moment you've ended the game because OU isn't going to go on 2 scoring drives. No, you didn't go on 2 scoring drives. They got a fumble from Jamal Roberts, who will probably be carrying a ball around in practice all week. Even though I thought he had a great game, I thought when Jamal Roberts came in, there was definitely a feel of more explosiveness. But we're talking about the defense. But I thought, again, I got to say this a few times just because I know people go back and watch these, and I just want to be clear. I know the OU O-line this year has stunk to high heaven. But the Mizzou D-line did a really great job tonight. And Jackson Arnold was harassed all game. Their run game couldn't really get anything going. Although about their run game, I'm a little surprised they didn't try and get Xavier Robinson going a little bit more than they did. He ran the ball 9 times for 56 yards for a long of 10. Like, he wasn't explosive, but he was picking up 8, 9, like 7, 8. Like, he was doing a good job. I mean, obviously he was averaging 6.5 yards a carry. Like, he was doing a good job of consistently keeping an offense on schedule that Taylor Tatum just wasn't, and then they would have Jackson Arnold run. Like, Jackson Arnold ran the ball 17 times. So in total, Jackson Arnold had 41 plays he directly impacted by either throwing or running. And on those 41 plays, you held him to, quick mental math, 119 yards. It's less than 3 yards a play. Like, that's excellent defense on a quarterback who has really struggled. And, probably not a ton of confidence he's the OU quarterback next year. They're going to have to make a decision between him and Hawkins. I don't know what they're going to do. Like, I don't know. I have no idea which way to lean. But he is a talented kid, and you held him to under 3 yards a play when you include his rushing and his passing, because he can beat you both ways. And if you take away the 26-yard run that he had at the end of the game, now you're down to what? What I say, 119, 20. Now you're down to 40 plays and 93 yards. So you're like hardly over 2 yards a play. So the Mizzou defense tonight was excellent. Excellent. And I talked about special teams. I didn't even mention the fake punt they gave up. The fake punt that, come on, at some point, one of these teams is going to pull it out. Gritty, resilient win. Yeah, that's a win a lot of Mizzou teams in the past just do not get. Because if there's one thing the University of Missouri loves, it's tripping over themselves and blowing games that could change momentums of seasons, of the entire program in itself. And they got it tonight. Beating OU it means something. It's like beating. God, I can't even compare, but it'd be like beating Kentucky in basketball. Like, it doesn't matter how good or how bad Kentucky is or how good or bad you may be. It's a big win because you can sell that to recruits. It's like beating Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl last year. That's a gritty, gutty, resilient win for Mizzou, and you have to be happy tonight. They scored 30 points. On offense, they scored 23. That's the tied for the most they've put up against a Power 5 team, against an SEC team. They did score 27 against Boston College. Why am I not remembering? But at least against an SEC team. It's the most amount of points they scored in regulation when you include the 30 against a Power 5 team, because offense, I did appreciate all the, Mizzou's missing one guy. They're missing Brady Cook. How's the offense looking this bad? And I'm agreeing with them sort of, and also as the offense with Cook wasn't that good either. Like, if you watch the games, it is what it is, but beating Nebraska. Yeah, no, totally. Even in 07 and 08, or no, yeah, 08 and I didn't beat them in 9 or 10, but when they beat those Nebraska teams, I was kind of young, so I didn't have the gravitas of Nebraska, but I'm sure, yeah, similar feeling. We have an OU fan. I'm going to stand defend my Sooners, but that's arguing apps. Completely agree. That was a helmet to helmet. I have no look, I'll take the bad call, and I hope Deion Burks is okay. Like I said earlier, I know he's been battling injuries all year, and he's a really good receiver. He came over from Purdue. He went there, and the DN went to Texas A&M, but from the Boilermakers. And no, that was a brutal hit, and you could tell he had trouble walking off the field. He was down for a while. I was stunned there was no targeting. I was actually getting kind of mad, not because there was no call, but because I was getting mad because I was like, are they waiting till he's helped off the field to review it? Because I was like, surely they're going to review this. And then they just never did. He did walk to the sideline. Yeah, but it wasn't like a step. It was really wobbly. So yeah, no thoughts with that kid or guy. I don't know. I'm older than all these guys now. So when I started doing this, I wasn't completely always older than them. So I was 24. I don't know how old Deion Burks is. I know he's got to be a senior. But no thoughts with him. That was ugly. I think it was Sidney Williams on the hit. And there were some nasty hits tonight. Billy Bowman, I think it was Bowman, or was it Stunsman? God, I don't remember who it was. It was one of the two. Got burdened really good on the sideline when on the 4th and 1 reverse, which is a play call I hated. Because I'm like, you're not getting the ball to Luther. I mean, they were getting the ball to Luther, but I'm like, that kind of play, OU's got a good defense. Just go north and south and see what happens. I mean, Demonic Williams is a really good player, and their other D tackle, the freshman, he shoved Caden Green to the ground on one play, which I'm sure OU fans had to love. But I just go north and south. But yeah, no, there were some hits tonight. You could tell, despite the season that both of these teams have had, which for OU is they got to pull an upset against Bama or LSU to make a bowl game, which would end a 25-year streak of making a bowl, which is an impressive streak. Just with the ups and downs in college football, that OU's been able to be pretty fairly consistent throughout all of that, or beat LSU. And for Mizzou, so despite that, and Mizzou, their playoff hopes are basically over because they got slaughtered in their 2 biggest games of the year. These 2 teams did not like each other. That was a heated game. I thought both teams played really hard, and that was a fun football game. And back to our OU friend, which I appreciate you joining. That was a scary injury, which is saying something because OU's had injury issues all year, and we'll talk about Brent Venables here in a second, just because now that I've watched his team play, my team, and I'm not just watching as like a neutral fan or rooting against OU. To be perfectly honest, I think I have a better idea of like what OU maybe should do, but I understand injuries have been a large part of this year. I mean, all the receivers have been hurt. Nick Anderson, Deion Burks, Farouk was been out. Both Burks and Farouk played tonight. I actually thought Farouk played pretty well, considering their offense couldn't do anything. He only had 2 catches for 11 yards, but I thought he got open a good number of times on inside routes. And there was one clip of him talking to Jackson Arnold on the sideline, and Arnold was telling him something. You could tell Farouk was very frustrated, as he should have been. I thought he actually was getting open against, in the slot. Sometimes he was going up against Williams. Sometimes it was against Burks. Sometimes it was against Deloach. Kind of all over the place. And you could just tell he was like not having it. Okay. Okay, Coach V. Yeah, they're not going to fire. Well, okay, so let's get into Venables, just because as a Mizzou fan, I kind of don't want you guys to fire Venables at this point. We'll see what happens. Coaches change tunes. I'm sure everyone that rooted against Mizzou did not want them to fire Eli. He's 100%. This is not the same as Riley or OU. This game was exciting. Yeah, and you'd rather have some exciting games because they've got blown out by South Carolina. They got blown up by Texas. Tennessee, wasn't like a complete blowout, but it wasn't close. Firing with Trout was a good call. Yeah, the O-line's just a disaster. I mean, and to be fair, I think and Bill Bedenbaugh's a really good O-line coach. I'm talking a lot with my hands. Bedenbaugh's a really good O-line coach. I think everyone coming into the year was like, oh, that O-line might be a bit of an issue. And it has been. And then the receiver injuries, and we talked about that. Arnold or Hawkins, and I don't know how you can be. They just both have looked really mid or bad. I thought Venables coached the game to win. The fake punt was indicative of that. I think I agree, because I think it would have been easy at the end of the game with Jackson Arnold to just kind of take it into go to OT, which I think might have been the better choice just because of the turnover issues and the O-line issues OU has. But yeah, I just don't like – Mizzou's offense has struggled this year, and you gave up 23 points to a backup quarterback, and that's supposed to be your side of the ball. And the OU defense is pretty good. And a lot of the times, they gave up big numbers to Texas, and they gave up big numbers to South Carolina, but a lot of that is the offense can't do anything. For him, it's going to be, like we talked about Monday on the preview show, it's going to be important who he hires. This might be the biggest hire Brent Venables. This will be the biggest hire Brent Venables is ever going to make for the rest of his career, because even if he gets let go, he's still young enough, he can get another job, whatever. It's going to be a huge hire. And then that guy will have to evaluate if Arnold or Hawkins can run that offense that this new OC wants to run, or if they need to dip into the portal. OU is a great program. And Monday we said I could see them having a flip next year just because of how great that program is. And with all the injuries they've had, it's just kind of been pardon my language, just kind of been a crappy year. Kind of a year from hell. But the schedule doesn't really ease up. I mean, you got to go to Knoxville. You got to go to Tuscaloosa. You get LSU. You still get LSU, but you get them at home. You'll still get Auburn. You'll get them at home. And Auburn, you would imagine it'll be better. It's still Texas on the neutral. You get Mizzou coming to your home stadium. But, you still got to play. Tennessee will probably be a top 15-ish team. Bama's going to be a top 10 team. LSU is probably going to be a top 15 to 20-ish team. South Carolina could still be a top 20 team. That's a young team that's super explosive. And you got to go to Carolina. You still got to go play Texas. Yeah, there could be a flip for OU if just injuries go more their way. But the schedule next year should be tough. So I mean, how many wins does Brent Venables realistically need to get off the hot seat? I don't know. But I don't think they're going to make a bowl this year. And I don't think simply making a bowl at a place like Oklahoma saves your job. Yeah, OU's defense is tired more than anything. They were got eaten alive. I thought Mizzou's O-line in the second half really started to establish. I think Nate Noel, you can tell the difference between like a Nate Noel and even Jamal Roberts and Marcus Carroll. And I lied earlier. I misread. Marcus Carroll had 13 carries on 25 yards. Like he's just not an SEC back, man. Like if Nate Noel isn't healthy, I want to see Jamal Roberts more than Marcus Carroll. He's just not fast enough to play at this level. Be the best defense in the SEC if you're off. And I think OU has the talent to certainly be like a best defense in the SEC. Their safety position is absolutely freaking loaded. And they're really talented, and the linebacker's pretty good. And just the offense is not helping them at all. They have to improve. And we saw this Monday. I made the comparison with 2012 Mizzou and this year's OU, and I don't think OU fans want to hear that. But 2013 Mizzou won the SEC East. They won 12 games. They were awesome. Now the schedule doesn't set up for OU like that team did for Mizzou. But in 2012, Mizzou kind of reestablished themselves in the O-line. You know, they had 4 guys that eventually got drafted and had pretty decent career. I think all of them except Bame had decent careers. McGovern played for a while. Britt played for a long time, and Morse is still in the league. So they, you just have to be better. And that's the offensive line. Defensive line, OU is fine. And they have and the thing with OU is they have a great O-line coach. So you would think he'll be able to figure it out. This is just maybe a bad year. Ninth start, yeah, and I think and David mentioned that earlier, 9th starting, different rotation. And part of that's injuries. Part of it is just it's not very good. And before the season, I know a lot of people talked about this is not a good O-line. This is a chance to be a really bad O-line for the Mizzou, for the OU football team. And it's just not good. I mean, I thought Mizzou's D-line was awesome. I thought Christian Williams played a great game. I thought Chris McClellan was flying. Johnny Walker was flying. Zion Young was flying. Shoot, Ja'Kai Lang was flying. Ja'Kai Lang, I saw him in the backfield a couple times. Now he missed a sack, but he got hands on Arnold. I'm like, okay, Ja'Kai, let's finish next time. But no, he's a great player, and I'm super excited I'm excited for next year's Mizzou defense because basically everybody but Hicks, the linebacker, and Charleston are going to come back. And Christian Williams. They're going to miss 3 big pieces, and I think Johnny Walker goes too. I think Johnny Walker has a chance to come back. But like Zion Young come back, another year Nuinari, another year Lang. You'll have Miss McClellan. Sterling Webb played pretty well tonight. You still have Eddie Kelly, Marcus Graciel showing some flashes. Like, now's the time for the guys Mizzou's recruited to like really step up. Getting more comments. That's the least surprising thing ever. That BYU's a fraudulent team, man. Like they just are. Like they're top 10 because they were undefeated, so fair enough. But like they're not that good. You don't win 100 games on miracles and people think you're a good team. No team in the Big 12 is that good, except maybe Colorado. Like Colorado. That's great because they have the best quarterback. Recruiting is taking a hit for sure, unless Coach V finds his way out. So I would ask you, what would be your baseline? Because you're my representative OU fan in the chat, and I'm not trying to crap on OU tonight. Like that's just not fun for me. You know, I just come out here and be like, hee hee. Like that's just not fun. I would rather have an honest conversation. I can do that on my own time. What would be the OU? Like, what would be the baseline for OU next year? I don't think simply making it to a bowl, despite the schedule, is good enough for Oklahoma. At least I wouldn't think so. I mean, but going into next year, like, what can you really, what is the expectations for OU? as they go into next year, and what's going to happen there. I'm really intrigued by it. I think OU is a super interesting team going into next year because I think they're pretty good. Like, I think OU is a pretty good football team. Like, just waiting to, maybe it's coaching, maybe it's just maybe it's just offensive line, maybe it's just a key guy here and there. I don't really know. But how many wins would you bet on OU to have next year? Because speaking of betting, I know a great place to do it.
College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.
Okay, perfect. Shift. Okay. So it's 10 wins has always been the standard. That's what I thought. Now, I would not expect OU to win 10 games next year because of the schedule. And I don't want to talk too much about OU. I'm just curious about this because I've been kind of wondering this all week. I would not expect OU to, because of the schedule, like how many of these games can you realistically expect OU to win? At Tennessee, at South Carolina, at Alabama, LSU at home, Texas. So to get to 500, you would have to win all those games. Or you'd have to win 3 of those games. And then you'd have to beat Michigan at home, and then that means beating out everybody else, including Auburn, LSU, Ole Miss, Missouri, all at home. Can they do it? Yeah, absolutely. OU is a program that's always going to be chock full of talent. But moving off OU, for Mizzou, OU's been now a headbutting recruiting rival for a bit. Obviously went head-to-head with Newmaneri, Isaiah Mosey, who ended up not picking either school. I think he's at Nebraska now. He was at Oregon, and I think he decommitted from Oregon when they got a couple other kids. But it's a big one. You can say, hey, with a backup quarterback, we were able to beat OU. And just keep coming. We're keeping improving the program, and that's something you can sell to these kids. That's a huge win. I know OU is 5-5, and OU might not even make a bowl. But that's a big win, especially if you finish the season at 9-3, which would be my expectation. Hey, man, better days are ahead for OU. Thanks for being here, though. They're finding Mizzou's finding success. And success for Missouri is going to be by wins. It's not going to be by SEC titles. It's not going to – and I know what I just kind of said contradicted itself. I'll explain. Or national titles or playoff berths. Because Mizzou should never – right now not expect to be competing for SEC titles. Should not he said 8-4. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I think that's a fair bet. I wanted to get back to that. Because that's not where the Mizzou football program is right now. As I talked about Monday, if Mizzou wants to make the SEC championship game, they're going to have to be better than one of Texas, LSU, Bama, Texas A&M, Georgia, Tennessee. Like, there's like 6 or 7 teams I would bet would be in the SEC title game every year. and then you have to be better than all the rest of them, and then other teams like Auburn and other schools, Florida, that have had great years. So no, but for Mizzou, it's just going to be a wins. 9. Can you get 8, 9, 10 wins a year and really establish yourself as a program where kids can go win football games? And if you can build a special enough class and get a couple breaks, you can make the playoff and maybe make a run. It's really nice to see the rivalry come back. So Mizzou left in 2011 after the 2011 season. So 2012 was their first year in the SEC. No, it was really nice to see it come back. And I know OU, we also talked about this Monday. OU is not Mizzou's biggest rival, or not Mizzou's biggest rival. Obviously, it's Kansas. Mizzou's not OU's biggest rival, but it is a rivalry. You're allowed to have multiple rivalries. There's two fan bases that don't like each other. For Mizzou, it's a little bit of a little brother complex because OU is such a successful program. But truly, it is a rivalry, and this goes, and it's on in basketball too. Like, I'm excited for that to come back. But yeah, no, it's been super fun. 2011 was the last time in a 38-28 OU win. Yeah, we all missed the rivalry. It was fun to have back. For Mizzou moving forward, we'll talk about this Monday when we preview South Carolina. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a difficult game. That team is humming, and they have everything in front of them too. Like, South Carolina's 7-3. They should have beaten LSU. They're going to feel like they really should have beaten LSU. They had Bama on the ropes. They just beat Texas A&M at home. They beat the crap out of OU, and they lost to Ole Miss. They got kind of dominated by Ole Miss, but yeah, they're having a really good year, and you're in their way. They're 6-3. Excuse me. They beat you. They have wins that are Clemson. They have Clemson on the schedule. They have Wofford. So if they can beat you, they're staring a 9-win season in the face. And honestly, a 9-win South Carolina team, if they beat Mizzou and then they beat Clemson with a win over Vanderbilt on the road, killed Texas A&M, killed OU, should have beaten Alabama, should have beaten LSU, but 9-3 South Carolina would have an interesting playoff case. They wouldn't make it, but it would be interesting. I would talk myself into being they're not going to make it, but they should maybe make it. Mizzou has been a big step. So the big thing for Mizzou next year, Mr. J2K, is they're going to be missing a lot. Weiss is gone, Cook's gone, Burden's gone. Their left tackle, Marcus Bryant's going to go. The left guard, Cam Johnson's going to go. Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll's going to go. That's why this year were so high expectations, because everybody on offense was back, and then they replaced Cody Schrader with two, running backs that were very highly thought of in the portal, and it's just Bama and Georgia on track to. I don't know about that. I would have to wait and see that. I'll have to see it to believe it, but Ole Miss is losing a lot too, but Tennessee and Texas, yeah, that's that. I would agree. Next year they are the favorites. Maybe South Carolina in that mix. Depends if Kennard comes back, which I don't think he will. South Carolina's going to be really interesting next year too. But yeah, definitely Tennessee, Texas. Tennessee, Texas. I'm trying to think who else I would probably put in that list. Somebody will surprise. Ole Miss will be interesting because Lane always recruits the portal super well. And congrats to him. He finally got a big win. I don't know. It's going into next year. Yeah, no, recruiting from Mizzou's been off the charts. It's just we have to see it, especially at quarterback. They need to figure out a quarterback. It's not going to be Drew Pine. As awesome as Drew Pine, as great as the story of Drew Pine was tonight, he did only throw for 143 yards. So, and they did not trust him for most of that game. So, and as great as tonight was for him and for Mizzou, he can't be a starter next year. He just can't be. It is what it is. I don't know. Like Vandy talent's still Vandy talent, so I think Vandy could win. Like, let me think. Who would they play next year? They would go to Bama, so that's probably a loss. They would go to Texas, that's probably a loss. They would get Mizzou at home. They could win that one. They would get LSU at home. They could win that one if Pavia comes back. Like maybe I don't see it though. It's with Vanderbilt's talent. Like everything has to break their way. They'd have to go to South Carolina, who just whipped them. So, yeah. Despite today, Georgia's just a standard. Like Georgia's to me is still a national title contender. Maybe in that second tier with some other teams, they're not A1 like I thought with like Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, but. Is what it is. Thank you guys all for being here for Missouri Postgame Live as the Tigers knock off OU 23-30. I don't know why I said the lower score first. I just kind of did. But yeah, no, fun game as we're just kind of talking about the SEC right now, kind of projection for the future. You know, what OU's future looks like, what Mizzou's future looks like after a big win tonight. Is Mizzou still on track to win 9-10 games? So I kind of agreed with this statement until tonight, where they played a perfect game against LSU. That was perfect. I have multiple screens, so I can watch whatever. They played a perfect football game on the road tonight against an LSU team I think is pretty good. So, especially at home. What's Coach Brian Kelly's biggest win at LSU, by the way? Is it Mizzou last year or is it Ole Miss in 2022? Like, it's one of the two because he doesn't have – I guess it was Bama. Never mind. I take it back. I forgot about that one. I forgot about that one. It's definitely Bama in 2022. But for Mizzou, it's, keep building up recruiting. If you can consistently build top 20 classes, you're probably going to be a pretty consistent top 20 team. Top 20, 25 team. The issue in the SEC is a top 25 class is going to be like, if you finish like 18th, it's going to be like the 10th best class in the league because Florida's probably going to be ahead of you. Georgia's going to be ahead of you. Texas is going to be ahead of you. Texas A&M is going to be ahead of you. Alabama, like, all the normal schools. It's just going to be hard for Mizzou going forward. But tonight was a huge step forward into doing that. And I'm super excited to see what next week brings. We'll talk about South Carolina on Monday, but it is 11:15. I am exhausted. I've been up for 17 hours now, and I know tough life watching football and talking about football with people who also love talking about football. So thank you all for being here. J2K, Mr. Smith, David, thank you for being in the chat. We will be here Monday, 7 o'clock for Missouri Live. I have a thing for that, but my computer is bugging out. Where we will break down South Carolina game. We'll talk a little bit more about this OU game. Thank you guys for being here. Make sure to check out the Voice of College Football with Mark Rogers, talk about his show every morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. Just around the world of college football. It's after a weekend, can kind of settle down, just talk about everything that happened. Subscribe, like the video, please, guys. Like I don't want to say please, but this program is going a long way. This channel has come a long way since I started. There's no reason to not hop on board. There's a bunch of people. No one with agendas. It's just fans like you and me who love talking about football, and we're super excited that you guys are here for along for the ride. My name is Zach Ramilius. I'm super happy to be here doing Missouri Live. Subscribe. Thank you guys for being here tonight. MIZ, that's a huge win, man.